that debate will rest for what it was worth then. And I will reflect on a few other areas of this economy in rather more detail, although I promise that my presentation will be brief and indeed far shorter than it was on Tuesday. But admittedly, I have some questions for the government, and particularly for the Minister of Agriculture, the Honourable Member for St. Philip South. And of course, he is represented by the 10 present members of the government, so that they will feel free to speak on his behalf. But I do have some rather piercing questions for him as to the state of agriculture in this country. But before I come to that Ministry of Agriculture, I want to first reflect on the general context of what the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central said earlier today. I believe this bill is called the Economic Diversification and Growth Fund. By its wording, it fits well in with a lot of what we hear from the government. I repeat, the Economic Diversification and Growth Fund Act. The word in that legislation, diversification, will come to be known as ironic, since we are in an economy which has now become dependent on one sector. And there's a sense in which the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central admitted this today. But here we are this afternoon, bringing a bill before this Parliament called the Economic Diversification and Growth Fund Act, I beg your pardon. This economy has not been characterized by diversification, and if the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central insists in December 2025 that there has been growth, and if he insists on relying on the reports of the central bank, as I said earlier, and as I have said on more than one occasion, Barbadians are not meeting the reality of a statement that the economy is growing, and that there is a small, very small minority of Barbadians for whom the economy is definitely growing, but that growth is not extending itself to the majority of people in Barbados. And one very live example of the lack of growth impacting the lives of those in the middle and at the bottom is evidenced by what is described as a building boom within the tourism sector. More than once, this minister has told the country that it is unprecedented for this country to witness the construction of 6 hotels. And the masons and carpenters and the laborers of Barbados will ask the Honourable Minister the question, how is that growth, how is that building boom affecting me? We all know that there's a lot of migrant labor in this country. Let us not postpone that point. And let us agree that there is a large resource of migrant labor in this country. And when I say migrant labor, I am speaking of labor even from beyond this region, because over the last 60 years, we in Barbados and we across the Caribbean have learned to embrace the persons who come from within CARICOM. It is now a new trend that we're seeing labor from beyond CARICOM, and more particularly Mexico and, I understand, other parts of Latin America. And so the point is made, and the point needs to be seriously made, that the Barbadian labor force that works in construction is being marginalized by any building boom that may now be existent in this country. And the government must take some responsibility for that, since it is government that is the regulator of labor, certainly in terms of permission granted for the importation of that labor. So that is the first point that we need to make in terms of growth of this economy. How is that growth impacting the lives of local labor? And how is that growth even affecting the lives of local consumers? We've spoken about that at length, and we have criticized this government's failure to control a cost of living that seems to be really ruining lives. A lot of lives in Barbados are being ruined by a very high cost of living. But let me reflect on the language of the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central. And it is his language that by which he will come to be judged. The word is hyperbole. This tendency to exaggerate reality by the use of what now become cliches. And I quote, "We have had a good and robust 7 years notwithstanding the challenges." Now, when this government was in the middle of this 7 years of famine, there used to be a well-known recitation in here that government used to make an excuse for every failure. There used to be reference to a dust storm, a freak storm, a pandemic. Reference also used to be made to several bolts of lightning. And this economy was supposed to have been turned back by several bolts of lightning that struck over Barbados one night. All excuses, all lame excuses. Even the government now recognizes that those excuses used to be lame, and you don't hear it a lot in here now. Government, in its wisdom, has belatedly abandoned that language of excuse for its failure, except that the government is still speaking in hyperbole in relation to the economic performance of this government over the last 7 years of famine. Now, the Honourable Member began by saying that the foreign reserves are well set. Every Barbadian knows that this country has not earned its foreign exchange. This country earned qualification for loans. That foreign exchange, what appears to be healthy foreign exchange, was not generated within this economy. That foreign exchange was generated by negotiations with lending agencies. And there's nothing wrong with borrowing money. In principle, nothing wrong with that. But we all know that that borrowed money has not found reinvestment within the local economy, and that's why you borrow money. When a government borrows money merely to present a facade, to the rest of the world. And that is to say, look how rich we are in foreign exchange. And that foreign exchange springs from loans. You really are not achieving anything that is worthy of praise. You're not. Every last penny of foreign exchange borrowed should first be committed to the local economy by way of investment in the economy. And when we say the investment in the economy, we are talking about investment in people's lives, providing work, investment in the production of goods and services as a way of growing the economy. So where has the growth in this economy occurred? If there has been any, I've made the point that it has not been to the benefit of the majority of the citizens of this country. Of course, there has been some growth, but it has been growth at the uppermost levels, and it has not reached down to those in the middle and those at the bottom. A lot of that growth has been inflationary. Not even this government will attempt to deny that there has been runaway inflation in this country over the last 7 years of famine. Nobody now will deny that. And if a government attempts to deny that, the government will so alienate itself from the experience of Barbadians in this country that it would risk losing the audience of the entire Barbados. Every visit to the supermarket, to any retail sector, is a nervous visit for Barbadians, because they will tell you that the prices are increasing with almost every visit to the supermarket. And people will not live unless they eat. And purchasing food is a very nervous exercise for Barbadians. And this is something this government must come to understand. And this government must come to understand that it has a very serious responsibility to control the cost of living in this country. It is too high. It is murderously high. And a government that promised 7 years ago to reduce VAT, knew 7 years ago that VAT and the rate of VAT was a major contributor to the high cost of living. Except, Your Honor, government has chosen not to give any attention to the rate of VAT. So it has remained at 17.5% in spite of government's solemn promise. Must have been solemn then. In spite of government's solemn promise to the people of Barbados to reduce VAT, 7 years later, 7 years of famine, and government has not cared to touch VAT. And for that, this government must be condemned. This government must be condemned by the people of Barbados. This government must be condemned by households in Barbados for having failed to keep a promise, and not only failed to keep a promise, but failed to address the hardship of people in Barbados. A visit to the supermarket, I repeat, is a nervous exercise, and government must take responsibility for the nervousness of shopping in supermarkets in Barbados, or indeed shopping at any retail operation. Government must be condemned. But 7 years later, 7 years of famine, and there has been no improvement in the experience of shopping in this country. So when we talk economy, we're not talking beautiful numbers. We're not talking slogans. We are not defining the experience of people in this country by a phrase called debt to GDP ratio. I've said it in here before. I've said it out of here, and I will say it again today. I ask this government to stop defining the experience of Barbadians by a slogan called debt to GDP ratio. It is becoming like a curse word, a word of curse upon the lives of people. The lives of people cannot be defined by macro analysis by macro language that asks struggling people to define their lives and to define success or failure by a slogan, debt to GDP ratio. I ask this government to stop it and to pay attention to the basic issues. Reduce VAT. Reduce VAT. And apart from reducing VAT, pay attention to the Price Control Agency. because one lives an experience in which there's price gouging. And if this government isn't aware that there's price gouging, this government had better educate itself as to the experience of people in this country. And so, I regard it as an offense to the intelligence of Barbadians when you stand up in a parliament and say to them that we've had a good and robust 7 years, notwithstanding the challenges. I don't know what those challenges are. But if this government says that the pandemic has been a major challenge, and if the average man agrees with the government that it has been a major challenge, and if we all agree that the pandemic has been a major challenge, we do so agree. But the other countries in the world had it. It was a global pandemic. It was a global lockdown. And even our neighbors in the Caribbean recovered in a way that this economy did not recover. In other words, the recovery after the pandemic in our neighbors' economies was more impressive than the recovery here in Barbados. That is a fact. That is a fact. The recovery in the other Caribbean economies, y'all will get a chance to speak. And when you speak, you will speak in my silence. You will speak in my silence. So if it is not my house, but this is my voice and I have a right to speak now. So don't try to shout me down. Your Honor, I am shouting because I want my voice to be heard above those who are trying to interrupt me, and I am making a point. You got a point of order?
Yes,
so be it.
I'm truly grieved, Mr. Speaker. But on a point of order, it is not factual. He cannot demonstrate any figures to indicate that. The Barbadian economy recovered faster and better than many other territories in this region. And it became an example to others as to how to manage this crisis and to manage the economic devastation coming from COVID. And I want to congratulate the government for that.
The honourable member for St. James South surely must know by now that if you're challenging an assertion, you do it with reference to figures. So if the honourable member is countering what I have said, my assertion, if the honourable member attempts to challenge my assertion as a voice of authority, that voice of authority must be accompanied by statistics.
Honourable, continue, please.
Beg your pardon, sir?
Continue.
Thank you very much. Let them carry on. Let them carry on. Getting chucked out of St. Thomas just now anyhow. All of the honourable member for St. Thomas, all her speeches are made while sitting.
Honourable member, please continue.
No wonder they're chucking her out. So that it must now be a major disappointment that my assertion is challenged and not a document. On Tuesday, the honourable member for St. Philip South, in challenging my assertion, and I'll come to him very shortly, did it with the assistance of the Central Bank report. This honourable member for St. James South is no voice of authority on economics, and certainly the challenge to my assertion is not properly made unless it is made with statistical evidence from an authoritative document. I will press on. And I will say that, indeed, in some of the economies across the Caribbean, no offense to anyone, their tourism sector recovered at a greater rate than the Barbadian tourism sector. That's a fact. And if and when the honourable member for St. Michael West Central speaks, he will confirm or deny. He will confirm or deny. He too will get his chance to counter my assertions today. I move on to the other statement made today. What you're hearing was not an echo. I am going to appeal to you now, sir, to ask the Honourable Member for St. Thomas to endure. If she decides to stay awake, please let her endure my contribution in silence.
Honourable, please continue.
Thank you very much, sir. If she stays awake. The Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central said, and I quote, "The foreign reserves are well set. We need not repeat the source of those foreign reserves." Look, 2 years ago I was hearing in here this boast about the foreign reserves. Ask this government where those foreign reserves have been generated. Apart from tourism, and the other areas show minimal contribution, and I'm going to come to agriculture. Because the Ministry of Agriculture has a lot for which to answer. This country, the history of this country, is associated with a buoyant agriculture ministry, in spite of buoyant agriculture sector. In spite of the stigma associated with agriculture, and we are a sufficiently modern and progressive democracy that we have by now thrown off that stigma, and a stigma that really created social relations which were not healthy. But in a modern democracy, you learn to apply to an industry, or you learn to work in an industry with commitment to that industry, and to treat it as an industry with its own worth, with its own credibility, with its own value. And so there is nothing now to cause Barbadians to run away from agriculture. The land is there, the technology is there if you don't have land, and it is as respectable an industry as any other, including tourism, including manufacturing, and including any of the other high-tech industries which the young people seem to love. And this government, I hope, will explore industries that relate themselves to technology, but let us not digress. The point I'm making is that foreign reserves have not been generated by economic activity. They have been generated by the skill of negotiation. And of course, it seems that that skill is very expensive. We don't have a Freedom of Information Act, but I previously asked this government to give account for the fees, the commissions paid to individuals, whether local or foreign, because the obligation to repay includes those sums that have been paid to individuals. And I will say this now, that it becomes a corrupt practice if the people of this country are committing themselves to loans through the agency of government and they cannot be aware as to the question of fees. It is not a secret. It ought not to be a secret, but it is a secret. Alas, it is a secret. And if this government cannot find enough respect for the people of this country to give full disclosure in relation to loans that it is taking, something becomes rotten in the state of Denmark, something becomes even more rotten in the state of Barbados. I ask this government to make full disclosure. All the petty talk about being well set with foreign reserves that came into this country by loans, and the details of those loans are not given. But somebody and some bodies are running off in great wealth. Great wealth. Because when a government admits that it has borrowed billions of dollars over the last 7 years of famine, and this year in excess of $1 billion, somebody has been made wealthy. It certainly is not the people of Barbados. They can get vexed, they can be embarrassed, but make the disclosure. Make the disclosure to Barbadians, because it seems that there's a small subset, there's a small population of persons, and a very small population, perhaps fewer than 10 people. 10 people or fewer who have become wealthy off these loans. Off these loans. There's no indignity in practicing one's profession, whether it is a negotiator or a well digger. The well digger charges by the foot. We want to know how much these people are charging the government of Barbados. If it is a secret, it means that the government is admitting that something is unholy. Tell Barbadians now. Tell Barbadians now, over the last year, how much money has been paid in professional fees on these loans that Barbadians are taking. The other statement made by the Honourable Minister, we've had 17 quarters of continuous growth thanks to the Honourable Member for St. Michael West Central. I don't change my tune. On Tuesday I came in here and I commended, like the member for St. Michael for Christchurch West, Christchurch East Central. I commended that minister for commitment to duty. Like East Central, though, I say that perhaps his commitment to duty has resulted in a local casualty, a constituency. But that is one of the hazards of the job. If you're busy in government and you're busy in the foreign capitals of the world, and I'm not criticizing that honourable member's travel, because a tourism minister must visit the home of his guests. And I will not be heard in here or anywhere to criticize the Honourable Minister of Tourism for his expeditions. I think they're necessary. And in saying that they're necessary, the people of Barbados must now call upon the Prime Minister of this country to give account for excessive foreign travel at great expense to the people of this country. This is not any sacred ground. The people of Barbados are entitled to know what value the Prime Minister's travel has brought to the people of this country and what value it has brought to this country. I'm not today going to deal with any other minister. The Prime Minister of this country must be called upon to answer for being out of this country every week and a half. That is not sacred ground. That is something we are entitled to know. And in the good old days of government, the Government Information Service used to give details every time a Prime Minister left. They even used to cover the swearing-in ceremony at the airport. But we have a country now in which a Prime Minister believes that she can saunter in and out of Barbados as if she's on a frolic of her own, whether it is some expressed ambition to work elsewhere. If you want to work elsewhere, go elsewhere and work. Go elsewhere and work, and I'm not being offensive. The time has come when the people in this country must demand the full attention of a Prime Minister to the affairs of this country. Must demand it. Must demand it. And I tell you, Your Honor, it is an offense to the people of this country when they elected a government, knowing that they were electing a primus inter pares, the first among equals, and that first among equals has not had the respect for this country to spend 2 straight weeks here. 2. It has become, look, this is the first epidemic since COVID, an epidemic of prime ministerial travel, and I am not afraid to say that. This Prime Minister has to spend some time here, and not only spend some time here, but spend some time here working. And if the Honourable Minister of Tourism is working here and overseas, the Prime Minister has to do the same. Follow that example. Follow that example, and that is something that the people out there are whispering about. Well, I'm not going to whisper about it in here. I'm not going to whisper about it in here. It must become a matter of national concern. This dereliction of duty. And Your Honor, look, I can tell you now the purpose of some of the trips. I can tell you now, sir, the purpose of some of the trips. Look, don't get me vexed here. I am going to tell the purpose of some of the trips. And look, the purpose of a lot of those trips has nothing to do with Barbados' political, social, or economic development. A personal ambition. A personal ambition with money spent. Taxpayers' money spent.
Mr. Speaker, honestly, I cannot say a point of order. Clearly, the honourable member has been a member of this House for a long time, and he's well aware that he stands in honour to speak very clearly to imputing improper motives on another member. And I clearly think, I was listening very, very carefully, and at one point it was close, but I do think now he has crossed over and is imputing improper motives on another member. And I was asked that this comment be withdrawn.
I am asking this government, in the person of the Honourable Prime Minister, to bring to the people of Barbados disclosure as to the purpose of every trip and the global cost of those many trips. That is not to impute improper motives. That is to ask a Prime Minister to give account to the people of this country. Are we under the rule of a monarch that is entitled to act out of a discretion while you're doing it on the taxpayers' time and money? Well, look at your phones and look at your WhatsApps. Look at your phones and look at your WhatsApps. Don't defend anyone by instruction. Let them come and defend themselves. Let them come and defend. They're in Barbados, though. Let them come and defend themselves. WhatsApp's going like crazy. Let me press on, sir, and give the assurance to the Honourable Member for Christchurch West that there's no intention to disparage anyone or to impute improper motives, but I am stating a fact. I am stating a fact relating itself to the misallocation of public resources that are committed to travel, foreign travel. And every Barbadian has been saying over the last 7 years of famine that there's an epidemic of prime ministerial travel. What has it done for us lately? Give us the cost. Give us the regularity. Give us the destination. Give us the cause and the purpose. We don't have any monarch in this country that is entitled to immunity from disclosure in relation to public funds and in relation to dereliction of duty from a public responsibility to behave and to act like a prime minister of this country.
I
want to get
please
on a point of
continue
order.
as it relates to the matter.
Yes. I am back to the matters raised by the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central. 17 quarters of continuous growth thanks to the Honourable Member for St. Michael West Central. And I can eyeball him, and I can look at him, and I can commend him. It appears to me that tourism is rebounding in this country. I don't come in here to lie to anybody, and I ain't coming in here looking for no friends. I come in here with a commitment to truth. And if the gentleman deserves commendation for hard work, he will hear it from me. And by the same token, I will say that posing off, compared to his performance as tourism minister, posing off as some international celebrity brings no value to this country. Brings no value to this country. Let me press on, sir. It is a misallocation of public resources. But of course, I say to the honourable member for St. Michael West Central, what may appear to be success will ultimately be judged by statistics. And I am sure the honourable member for St. Michael West Central will bring those statistics when they become available. But I have been myself, by casual observation, as a person deeply invested in this country's economic success. That casual observation has told me that it seems as if we have not had an entirely bad start to the season. That is casual observation. The statistics will follow. So that, as I said, I am willing to give commendation, but I will not hide my criticism behind diplomacy. I will not hide it. This country doesn't have any monarch. The monarch does as he or she pleases without giving account.
Please.
I'm going on, sir. I'm going on. I am entitled.
Honourable, I know what you're entitled as you relates to relevance. Please.
Yes. I'm entitled to metaphor. All the tools of language.
I understand all you're saying. Please continue as you let's see the debate, please.
Yes, metaphor. We heard a poet this morning. Nobody stopped him. Let us come now, I quote, 17 quarters of continuous growth thanks to the member for St. Michael West Central. I believe, sir, that when the honourable member for Christchurch East Central was speaking, not only was he praising tourism, not only was he praising his Minister of Tourism, but he was disguising his chastisement of the honourable member for St. Philip South, who is the Minister of Agriculture in this country. And I challenge the Honourable Minister of Agriculture to say what is the true state of agriculture in this country. And he will not hear me extensively today on the matter of the sugar industry. He will not hear me extensively on that. Because what the people of this country are going to discover very shortly, in those famous words, that they will wake up one morning and they're not going to see any canes. That prophecy may well come to pass under the administration of the present Minister of Agriculture. And that is not a personal attack, my friend. That is an objective criticism. That is an objective assessment of an industry that is being allowed to fail. And Barbadians must be told something. Barbadians must be told that the BAMC, which was closed some 2 years ago, in fact, I'm going to put it differently. Barbadians are entitled to ask what has happened in the aftermath of the closure of the Barbados Agricultural Management Company. What has happened to the sugar industry? What has happened to cane? And just as I look around this country and see much activity and much vibrancy in local tourism, I am seeing, by casual observation, an obvious decline in agriculture. And therefore, I now want to ask this minister a number of questions. We're here today talking about diversification. And if this legislation intends to diversify, the experience of this government over the last 7 years has not been one to diversify this economy. And if the two pillars in this economy have been tourism and agriculture, this country is now resting on one pillar. This country is now resting on tourism alone. Any Barbadian can see that. And the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, I beg your pardon, acknowledged that not only today, but in several speeches made earlier this year. And as I've said, casual observation of our coastline will indicate to the average Barbadian that an emphasis is on tourism. And one might be tempted to say an overemphasis. But that may be an economic value judgment which one does not wish to make unless one makes deeper analysis. But, Your Honor, this government overemphasizes tourism. And this government has overemphasized tourism while a Minister of Agriculture has been off the job. And I'm not meaning to be offensive towards him. I'm not meaning to be offensive. But it feels as if the Honourable Minister of Agriculture is off the job. Drive around Barbados. I was prepared to drive around Barbados and look at tourism. I drive around Barbados and look at agriculture. And it appears, Your Honour, as if the thing is dying. And if I call upon the Honourable Member for St. Philip South, the Minister of Agriculture, to give account today for the state of agriculture, what can he report to Barbadians? Can he say to Barbadians who are driving around this country, this pothole country, and seeing obvious decline, seeing swaths, acres of lands that used to be in sugarcane, now in grass? Of course, sugarcane is a grass, but they expected the grass called sugarcane. And while a lot of the acreage has become grassland, non-sugar agriculture, there's no evidence that there has been any increase. But we will ask questions today. The Honourable Minister of Agriculture likes to answer questions. And when I made my assertions this week in a very angry response, the Honourable Member answered some questions. Well, I want more anger today, and I want more answers today. So I have some questions. I will begin with an anecdote. A few weeks ago, on Robert Street, I was offered, by way of sale, some agricultural produce. And when I interviewed the young man, we always must, you know. He said that he is from St. Vincent, and he brings his produce from St. Vincent. He sells it here, and I made further inquiry. I said, you know, in the early days, the schooners used to come right out there in what we call the wharf. They would offload. I don't even know if they went through immigration and customs and that kind of thing. It was genuine Caribbean integration. And they would come by that wharf, offload mangoes and other produce, and walk through Barbados and sell them back on the schooner back to St. Vincent. That was Caribbean integration at its best. I say that to say, Your Honor, that was an example as to what is happening in the agricultural sector. And therefore, that impels me to ask this Honourable Minister a number of questions. The Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central said that we are confidently moving into 18 months, 18 quarters, I beg your pardon, of growth. 18 quarters, that's a long time. 18 quarters is a long time. I asked the Honourable Minister of Agriculture to give a report to Barbados through this Parliament on lamb production. And you know, when I first came in here and talked about sending the sheep to Guyana, nobody knows yet why. We don't know if the sheep are alive, dead. We don't know. No report has been given to this country. No official report has been given to this country. When I asked it last year, when I asked what happened to the sheep in Guyana, I was told that a gentleman was going down there to count them and he would come back and report. So we give a man a plane ride and 2 or 3 nights in the Marriott in Georgetown to count sheep and to come back and tell Barbadians how many died, how many are alive, and how many are about to be slaughtered. No report has been given. No satisfactory report has been given. And I say that in asking the question of the minister. Give us an account and give us an accounting as to the state of the black belly lamb industry in this country. You could not turn a corner in this country a few years ago unless you saw that cherished Barbadian iconic presence of a black belly sheep. Today, if you want to show your child a black belly sheep, you have to go on a very long expedition to find it. This country has been denuded of its black belly sheep population by an ill-advised government that took a decision to send them to Guyana on a scheme for which no report was given, and in the aftermath of which no report has been filed with the people of Barbados. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. This government, as I said, acts arbitrarily in the exercise of its mandate to govern. So I asked this minister to come to the people of Barbados without taking any personal offense and give a report on the black belly lamb industry in this country. And I say this, the black belly lamb industry was dominated by small people. I don't associate with these terms emotively, small people and poor people. But it was an industry dominated by working class people. And if it is an industry that has been denuded of its sheep population, you also therefore denude those working class people of their industry. The reports are that they were paid paltry sums of money. Paltry sums of money. Some of them took it because very few people in an economy that is struggling will refuse even paltry sums of cash. How ironic, because we talked earlier today about the eventual disappearance of cash, but a lot of people were offered paltry sums of money. They took it, and we now have an industry that is in decline. I want to come to pork, though. I want to come to pork. And I will pause and ask the Honourable Minister to further explain a statement that was made by him in here earlier this week. I charge this government and I charge this minister with having presided over an agricultural sector that had declined to 3% of gross domestic product. That is where the words have greater meaning, gross domestic product. That is a greater definition. That offers a greater definition of people's lives. Gross domestic product, not necessarily in relation to national debt. Gross domestic product in relation to the success of or the failure of industry, an industry led and occupied by real people. The Honourable Minister got up and said that the central bank has now said that agricultural production has increased by 10%. And the emphasis was made on 10%. Now, the unsuspecting may have believed that agricultural production had gone to 10% of gross domestic product. I had to remind the Honourable Minister that 10% of 3% is minuscule. Minuscule. That a 10% increase over 3% is small, very small, and it is nothing to boast about. But I'm going to ask, and I'm not going to challenge what the central bank said today. They're professionals in that area, and I don't pretend to be an economist. I don't pretend to be one. But that is nothing to boast about. So tell Barbadians that the real figure is not 10%, that it is 10% of 3. That it is minuscule growth when one considers that it pertains to 3%. So it is nothing about which to boast. So we ask the question, has lamb production contributed to that minuscule increase in agricultural production? Or is lamb production down with the export of our precious stock to Guyana? That's the question.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. I think we've endured quite some time listening to the Honourable Member. This Economic Diversification and Growth Fund Act, Economic Diversification and Growth Fund Act, relates to qualifying companies, which is defined as a company which has a real and substantial economic presence in a jurisdiction other than Barbados, and also engages in or intends to engage in real and substantial economic activity in Barbados. So it's two things. Two things. You must have a real and economic presence in a jurisdiction other than in Barbados and do business in Barbados. And it seeks to establish a fund for specific purpose. Y'all remember it's ranging far and wide, but it does not accord with the principles of debate under our standing orders or under well-established parliamentary practice. I respectfully suggest that he rein himself in and focus on the subject matter of the debate.
The honourable member may not have been present during the address by the member for Christchurch East Central, who ranged far and wide. Who ranged far and wide as to economic performance in this country, who dealt with business in Barbados. The honourable member for St. Joseph has just told this parliament that it pertains to business in Barbados. I am talking about business in Barbados. Speak to the honourable member for Christchurch East Central, who said in here this morning, who spoke as to the economy, and who spoke to the economy in general terms and in specific terms. I am reserving the right to speak in general and specific terms as to the performance of this economy in Barbados and out of Barbados. And I'm going to come to out of Barbados very shortly. I resent the attempt by the honourable member for St. Joseph to circumscribe what I am saying in here today. My debate, the content of my debate will not be circumscribed.
Honourable, I'm speaking.
You want to circumscribe what I have to say? With these technicalities?
Honourable member, when they speak, right, this chamber listens. And you are no exception because you are the leader of the opposition. So I just want you to remember that there's a level of decorum expected in this chamber. And that decorum must continue at all times, regardless of whether you're the leader of the opposition, whether you are the honourable member for Christchurch South. I just want you to remember and understand that. Continue, honourable member.
Thank you, sir. points of order to circumscribe the content of a debate. Ought to have listened to the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, who ranged far and wide in here this morning.
Honourable Member, please continue.
I am continuing. I'm grateful to you, sir.
Honourable Member, please
I am
continue.
really very grateful to you. And now I come back to asking the questions of the Honourable Member for St. Philip South. And I'm going to ask him about the pork industry. And I'm going to ask the Honourable Member if the pork industry in Barbados has increased in its production. And I'm going to ask the Honourable Member if the pork industry in Barbados, pork production has increased as a result of the importation of pork from Suriname. I haven't asked who owns the farm down there. I haven't asked that. I haven't asked that. I have asked if the pork industry, the production in the pork industry has increased as a result of the importation of pork from Suriname at the expense of the local pork industry. The local pork industry is being destroyed by the importation of pork from Suriname, purporting to be fresh pork when it is frozen. That's a fact, Your Honor. That is a fact. And on this occasion, I believe there's a sitting in here on Tuesday. And if I don't ask the question as to who owns the farm in Suriname, today, I am going to ask it on Tuesday. So prepare for that question on Tuesday. But the question today, Minister, through you, sir, is not the local pork industry in decline to the point of destruction as a result of the importation of frozen pork from Suriname. And I'm not asking who owns the farm. Keep that in the back of your head. Come up with an answer next week. Come up with an answer next week. I speak on behalf of local industry in here today. And Barbadians are suffering at the hands of this government in too many ways. Too many ways. And when this ministry ought to have been looking after genuine agricultural production in this country, we are importing pork from Suriname, frozen, calling it fresh, and killing the local industry. Those are questions. Honourable Minister of Agriculture, through you, sir. Are we importing butternut squash from Honduras? And asking the central bank to count that as an increase in agricultural production. This 10% increase in production may well have nothing to do with local production, but it may have more to do with importation. Are we importing butternut squash from Honduras? And therefore augmenting the numbers relating to agricultural production? These are serious questions.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I tried very hard not to engage the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, but just to clarify for Hansard, central bank reports are based on local production only, not imports. Imports are not counted in the central bank report.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I will make the charge, and I may well make the charge, that agricultural production, the statistics relating to agricultural production may be extending itself to those imports. And I ask the question, the minister has kindly and politely given his answer, and he's been very gentle. And I appreciate that gentleness of response. But I have some more questions. You drive along the highway, and I used to think that these watermelons were produced in Barbados. Pumpkin and watermelons from Guyana. The Honourable Member has given the answer in relation to pork. I beg your pardon, in relation to butternut squash and pork, respectively from Honduras and Suriname. We're not going to ask who owns the farm in Suriname. The people in Barbados will be told that in the fullness of time. And I suspect that's why the point of order came. I'm not ready for that yet, my friend. I'm not ready for it yet. Not ready for it yet. I know a lot of the points of order are well timed. Permit me to go back to the issue, sir. Don't get nervous, Mike. Don't get nervous, son. Don't get nervous.
Honourable member, please continue.
Thank you. So I asked the Honourable Minister of Agriculture whether these numbers are not augmented by the importation of pumpkin and watermelon from Guyana. The Honourable Member can give a single answer at the end. I don't expect him to jump up every time. But I am charging that the figures of agricultural output are including these items, these articles, this produce. That is my assertion.
Mr. Speaker, this is the last time I will rise, just because I need to protect the integrity of the officers at the Barbados Statistical Department and the Central Bank. I will state again that all production numbers for the Central Bank report are taken only from local production. I wish the Honourable Leader of the Opposition would withdraw the accusation on the integrity of the officers in the Barbados Statistical Service and the Central Bank of Barbados, and indeed the Ministry of Agriculture. He should do the honourable thing and withdraw the statement, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Like the Honourable Member, I have the right to freedom of speech, the right to responsible freedom of speech, and I'm entitled to make a charge, as is he entitled to issue a denial. Neither of us has quoted any academic authority. Neither of us. Just as the Honourable Member has the right to responsible freedom of speech, I will not be denied equally the right to responsible freedom of speech. I will continue to ask the questions on behalf of the people of this country, on behalf of the pig farmers in this country, whose industry is about to die because pork is coming in from Suriname. And I say for the third or fourth time, this time I'm not going to ask you to disclose who is the owner of the farm in Suriname. How many acres of onions? Let's get local, Minister. How many acres of onions are under cultivation this year as compared with last year? Has it increased? Has it declined? Acres of cotton. Need I remind this minister of the pledge made in relation to cotton? That cotton was supposed to have been another growing, no pun intended, industry. The last we heard is that a company is being brought in here to do what Barbadians had been doing for years: cultivate and produce cotton. The government has withdrawn from that, and they're bringing in somebody now to do what Barbadians had done perhaps for more than 100 years: grow cotton. How many acres of yams and potatoes are under cultivation? And if I add to yams and potatoes, the question in relation to yams and potatoes, if I add to that acreage of cotton, if I add to that acreage of onions, can I ask the Honourable Minister to tell the people of this country whether the acreage under production has increased or decreased? I know the answer. The minister has said that he can get up and give an answer. Will he do so now? Or will he remain in his silence? Will he remain in his silence while the answer continues to blow in the wind? And it is known by some, but the Honourable Minister is supposed to speak with authority and with academic authority from statistics or the central bank or wherever. can he produce this authority in support of his claim that these acreages have increased? They have not. We all know they have not. Ground provisions. We understand the crisis that is agriculture in this country. We really understand it. As I said, Your Honor, a casual drive across this landscape would indicate to us that agriculture is dying, and we live in a country, we just went through COVID, we just went through a lockdown, we just went through a crisis, a severe crisis which threatened food security in this country. And coming out of COVID, you mean it is only tourism that is supposed to come out of the slump, not agriculture? You can eat a hotel? Well, you got to eat some breadfruit. I call it, sir, the most severe crisis in agriculture that has ever afflicted this country is occurring right this minute while we stand in this parliament and speak. And the Honourable Minister need not take personal offense. He is part of a government. And he ought to be the beneficiary of good leadership, not absentee leadership. And it is in that context that I refer to the absence of the Prime Minister from the affairs of this country, because the Prime Minister has not presided over government and administration in this country, has not given proper leadership to the ministries in this country. And everything has gone awry. A minister can sleep on the job, or he can choose not to report for the job. And I'm sorry, Honourable Member, for
Honourable
St. Philip
please
South.
continue
Yes,
as it relates to the...
on the path, straight and narrow, straight and narrow.
As it relates to the bill before the...
I'm obliged to you, sir. Straight and narrow will lead to salvation. I'm obliged to you, sir. Finish it now. Finish it now. Not going to torment you all for the whole afternoon. If the truth torments you, that's just the way it has to be.
I will continue,
Yes.
Honourable Member.
There were plans for a great ferry to move agricultural produce across this Caribbean space. Again, through you, sir, I ask the Honourable Minister of Agriculture, has the ferry sunk? What has happened to those plans? What has happened to those plans? We know not. Let them grumble. Let them grumble in their agony. They are simply a failed government. They are a failed government. They are an embarrassed government. And if there is no satisfactory answer to these questions, this economy is on a trajectory of failure because it has not been able to be multi-sectoral, genuinely multi-sectoral. It has not been able to diversify according to the meaning within the bill, and it means that we are leaning on one pillar, the pillar led by the Honourable Member for St. Michael West Central. And it is not so much that I wish him well, but I wish the survival of this country well. I am a patriotic Barbadian, and all of us want to see it do well. And I have said before that a lot of Barbadians are of good mood and temperament during tourist season because they feel the presence of prosperity. They feel the presence of a chance for survival. You watch taxi men during the tourist season, they're different beings. We want a successful country. We want a successful tourism industry. And we also want a successful agricultural industry. I'm sorry, Your Honor, we are not having the latter. The latter is in a state of dismal failure. We are not diversifying according to the meaning within this legislation today. And I have not come yet to the coup transaction. That transaction in which the sugar industry, which has been relinquished by BAMC some 2 years ago, is now in a state of abeyance. No one knows. And if the Honourable Minister of Agriculture knows and can say to us, where will be the sugar industry in December next year? Of course, if the people of this country are conscious and wise to what is happening in this country, this parliament may well be differently constituted next year. May well be. May well be. May well be. May well be. They come to life. They come to life. And you know how ironic it is? How ironic it is? How ironic it is that a failed member for St. Joseph is piped up on this one.
Honourable Member, please continue.
Yes, I would love to
Honourable,
continue.
continue the debate, please. Honourable Member, please.
I would love to continue.
Please.
Carrying a title with him.
Honourable Member, please continue as
Yes.
it relates to the bill before the House.
Well, look, I'm responding when he pipes up. You hear him again? You can hear him?
Honourable Member, you are dealing with the bill.
22 years?
Honourable Member, you're dealing with the bill.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Exercise judicial deafness, please.
No, no.
Honourable Member, Honourable Member, concerned.
I'm going to maltreat them.
Honourable Member, concerned your speech to the debate.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm going to maltreat them. Sugarcane is disappearing from the landscape of Barbados. What account? This Honourable Minister owes it to the people of Barbados to come to this chamber today through you, sir, and tell the people of Barbados what shall be the destiny of the sugarcane industry next year. What has happened to it this year? What plans, what miraculous plans does he have for sugar industry? Or will it go the way of cotton, which has been exported to foreign expertise, upon whom we wait to come and revive it? We haven't asked what it will be their bill. But that is the state of the economy in this country, sir. You have been extremely patient. I cannot say to the people of Barbados that I will sing the song. I cannot say that I will sing a song with similar verses to that of the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central. We, meaning the people of this country, have been the recipients of a lot of pretty talk over the last 7 years. And look, that pretty talk must come to an end. Let us feel some pretty reality. Let the people of this country feel that they live in a country that has good prospects for good economic development. They don't feel that way. They feel a sense of deep insecurity. And that is why there's an exodus from this country northward. And even the nurses from Ghana are coming here only intending to stay for a short time, The new policy is when they try to interrupt me, I will raise my voice. Drown them out. That even the nurses from Ghana are not intending to stay here at any great length, that they're deciding that Barbados is a mere stepping stone. Barbados never used to be a stepping stone unless a person made a decision to emigrate. People here used to be generally secure in this society and economy. They are no longer feelings of security in this society and this economy. Your Honor, I'm obliged to you.
Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, it seems to me that I'm starting to understand why there's often reference made by the Honourable Leader of the Opposition to the numbers in this place I realize it is because perhaps we are the only audience, the only captive audience he could possibly have that would consent to endure, or not even consent, because we must be here to endure what we have just had to endure. Certainly, the meetings that I understand that they've been calling that have, and I won't make reference to whether or not he habitually leaves the chamber. He habitually leaves the chamber once he has spoken. I won't make reference to that because that would be against the standing orders. But I understand why he often makes reference to our numbers, because I'm told that the numbers they're able to attract at their various meetings don't even reach the numbers in here. The 4 people and 2 dogs and a cat and a centipede that they're able that they're able to attract. I understand. I sympathize, sir. I do. This is a government that cares. I understand. Sir, I rise to give support to the general thrust of this legislation. I rise to give support to the purpose of the legislation, and indeed to also be able to say that this Barbados Labour Party government has been doing tremendous work in the real development of financial programs and products that are aimed to help build out a new economy, and that the government has been able to do that and has been committed to doing that in an ever-changing global environment. And I think perhaps this is something that we do not sufficiently appreciate. A former Democratic Labour Party government from 2008 to 2018 would say year after year, in response to a 2007 global financial crisis, that they had to contend with this global financial crisis. And what were they to do? They had one housing market-led global crisis that hit the banking sector and hit the mortgage sector, and we know the stories, sir, of how that had a domino effect throughout the banking system and the industry. But they lent on that crutch for a decade and suggested that this was the reason they couldn't come up with any good financial instruments, any ways to bring innovation to how a new economy in Barbados should be structured. And sir, I will never, not at the pleading of the Honourable Leader of the Opposition or anyone else, fail to remind us all what this country has recently experienced in the last 7.5 years. Sir, a pandemic is a 1-in-100-year event. And I think that sometimes what happens is that when an event of such magnitude is so well and carefully managed by a government, it looks easy. People think that it is easy. The fact that we had to not only, in advance of the actual pandemic coming here, determine, led by the Honourable Prime Minister, the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast, determined we were going to isolate the cases at a hospital in the north. Sir, the other members in here will attest that when that decision was made, certain leaders in other jurisdictions were still saying that COVID was going to go away and not leave the East. When that decision was made by us here in our region, there were other countries that thought, oh, there's a virus in China. It's never going to make it out of China. It's never going to make it here. And we had the foresight to be able to begin planning the health response, the infrastructure response, but further to that, the financial response. Such that we were able to partner with multilateral institutions like the Inter-American Development Bank to help set up a facility for small and medium enterprises, self-employed people, for anyone who would take a hit from the shelter-in-place order that the world was under. Sir, an 18% contraction in the economy one of the highest in any tourism-based economy in the world. But conversely, one of the fastest recoveries from that 18% drop of any tourism-based economy in the world. And so, I will never stop reminding us all of where we have come from and the environment in which we had to respond. I will never stop making reference to the pandemic, and in fact, to learn the lessons that we learned from the pandemic, nor to the ash fall. That was nothing short of an apocalyptic event when you look out your window and it felt like 30 Days of Night, as our horror film buffs would remember. Nor to the hurricanes or other extreme weather events that we had. No, we should not stop making reference to them. And it is not to be able to find an excuse or to lean on a crutch the way the Democratic Labour Party did for 10 years over one economic crisis. But it is to understand and learn from the kinds of instruments the government had to craft to be able to keep an economy afloat, to keep food literally on people's tables, to be able to make the kinds of social investments together with partners in the third sector and in the private sector and in the multilateral community that would mean that people could thrive coming out of the event. And so I will never, sir, fail to mention those or to make apologies for the kinds of financial innovation and sound economic management that this government has exercised. Sir, my intervention today is an encouragement for us to continue with that sound economic management and with that rigor in the instruments that we develop. And I say that with reference to this Economic Diversification and Growth Fund bill, which I believe is an opportunity for us to take stock of what really is our approach to industrialization or reindustrialization, and to be able to give account for the efforts we have already made, and to be able to situate this fund within a framework, to acknowledge that this is not a standalone facility. It cannot be. It should not be seen as such, nor should it be treated as such. And sir, I will tell you why. This country has established a number of funds and facilities. At the domestic level, and the majority are at the domestic level, whereas this legislation targets companies established in other jurisdictions that do business in Barbados. And I'll get to that. But sir, at the SME domestic level, we have things like the trust loan and fund access. We have within BIDC Export Barbados a special technical assistance fund whose purpose, and I recall that it had been paused, funds were replenished, I believe, in budget year 2024-25, and the purpose of such a fund is to be able to help cover some of the, well, first of all, to target export-oriented business, and to cover some of the costs that of slowdown in cash flow would prevent them from covering. It was also intended to help with issues of technology transfer, which I will also get to shortly. But there is a special technical assistance fund set up within Export Barbados, and I also seem to recall that there were efforts to set up other kinds of export-oriented funding facilities. There is and has been the Barbados Employment and Sustainability Transformation Program, BEST, which was set up directly as a response to the tourism industry having to recover from COVID. But importantly, BEST set certain criteria. BEST said, you will have access to this financing if you are investing in modernizing your plant, you are investing in digital transformation, and you are making certain commitments with respect to your labor force, among the criteria. And so that fund, it was clear for us to see and understand the criteria for which those companies would be able to access that support. There were triggers, and there were clear ways to be able to measure what those companies or those hotels or those hospitality companies had to deliver. The Housing Credit Fund, I made mention of, but that is more of a social investment facility. There is, similarly, sir, an industrial credit fund. There is, as well, an enhanced credit guarantee fund that is administered by the Central Bank of Barbados that is also meant to help offset the risk of certain kinds of projects in which commercial banks would tend not to have an interest. And I recall, as then Minister for Economic Affairs and Investment, bringing the second iteration of that fund to the central bank and making it with the stipulation that, that a certain change had to be made. And that change was that the Enterprise Growth Fund Limited had to have a say in the decision-making. And why? Because what was happening at the time was that the facility was simply being used in cases where commercial banks didn't care to take any risk at all. And we submitted that this was not the purpose of the facility. The purpose of the facility was really to be able to address, to be able to bet on people's ideas, especially innovative ideas, technology related to climate and so on, and to be able to provide financing for those people, and that EGFL would be well placed to be able to do that. But sir, I come now to the Enterprise Growth Fund Limited, EGFL, which, to my recent knowledge, was managing a series of funds. So I'm still itemizing, sir, the number of funds that are meant to target economic growth and arguably diversification. EGFL has been managing the Agricultural Development Fund, established by the Agricultural Development Fund Act of 2001, the Energy Smart Fund, which functioned from a loan program with one of our multilateral partners, the Export Promotion and Marketing Fund, the Industrial Investment and Employment Fund. And I want us to listen to the nomenclature, because these funds were established to do arguably what the current fund is established to do. The Innovation Fund, that's number 5, being managed by the EGFL. The Small Hotels Investment Fund, the Tourism Loan Fund, the Trade Receivables Liquidity Facility, and EGFL, for its own account, was also managing their own fund. Sir, I make reference to these things because I consider the moment that this bill comes here as an opportunity for us to take stock of the kinds of investment that we are making for the purpose of export growth, for the purpose of economic diversification, and for the purpose of job-led inclusive growth in this country. And so my remarks are meant humbly to provide a bit of guidance for what I think must be presented holistically by government as a framework for how we will see the kind of diversification that we would like to see in this country. Certainly, by first being able to say, well, what is it that this fund is going to give us that those 15 or so that I have just made reference to have not? I think that it is a moment for some of that reporting. and some of that accountability. Because if we are satisfied that we have not seen what we needed to see from funds such as the Innovation Fund, the Industrial Investment and Employment Fund, which, if we listen to the name, is meant to address all of these deficiencies in the economy. I think that we need to do some stock taking of those, and to be able to contextualize the conversation on this bill with respect to what have those failures been and why. Sir, Barbados' industrialization challenge is not a problem of capital. To the extent that in this legislation, we are requiring these companies to first prove productivity within 3 years, to then be able to access this fund, it means that such a company would already have to have capital on which they have been operating, would already have to have a certain number of jobs in place to be producing on the basis of those jobs, and should have brought with them the kind of structure that would allow them to produce. By definition, that's what is required by the fund. I cannot imagine either, sir, that Barbados' industrialization or reindustrialization challenge is a problem of incentives. Sir, in the 2024 budget, there were certain announcements made with respect to a fiscal incentives framework. That fiscal incentives framework made reference to things like an additional 25% non-refundable tax credit being introduced to boost the 50% research and development tax credit for projects related to the ocean and to the greening of the economy. Similarly, for projects related to that will result in net zero emissions in Barbados. Similar incentives for investments in projects that promote the government's national development strategy. And, sir, a series of incentives announced in last year's budget that were meant to encourage research and development, particularly in some of the areas, science, pharmaceutical production, and technology, that the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central mentioned in his presentation. And so, sir, having announced the fiscal incentives framework in 2024, having reference to the range of existing funds under several ministries of government, and having regard as well to the question of whether the gaps that we are seeing tell of a problem with capital. So to put it simply, a company that is bringing foreign direct investment, that is coming to have substantive operations here, must surely be bringing capital. I would suggest that that is part of why we want to have them. We want to have their industry. We want to have, and one of the reasons that I tend to believe in open borders is that I very much believe in what we saw through the Welcome Stamp program and what we saw even through having Ross University established here, which is that when people come to Barbados with good ideas and with a certain approach to innovation, it rubs off. But there are only 270,000 of us. And so we want to have them bring that innovation here. But they have to be coming with capital. So if they're coming with capital, what is our capital here doing? And I ask that as a sincere question, because I think it is important to understand what triggers a disbursement under this fund. What triggers a disbursement? And what is the nature of the disbursement? Is the disbursement a loan? Is it a grant for a particular purpose? It is not clear, and I'm sure that I will be schooled or at least given some more information in the interventions that will follow. But I do believe that if we are adding a new innovative facility to the suite of fiscal incentives, legislation that deals with concessions, and other funds that we have, that the triggers and the mechanisms to qualify should equally be made clear to us. I think the legislation would even have benefited perhaps from including in one of these schedules an application form so that we are aware, either through having one of the forms in these schedules. I've been here since 2018. And we now know, having given the Honourable Member for St. Joseph some of those gray hairs in his beard because he has had to take us through the process for perfecting legislation in here, but I certainly have learned enough from him and his team to understand that these are the corollaries to the substantive bill itself, in the regulations, in the schedules. These are the places to put the details to give us some more information. Certainly to understand what are the thresholds, how does one qualify. We see that there's a committee that is arguably a light governance touch, because whereas most funds under management certainly have a very robust governance mechanism, I think perhaps we would benefit from hearing a bit more about the governance mechanism intended for this one. But sir, the problem of industrialization that we have is, and I say it's not a capital problem because there's capital out there. And we have sent certain signals to the market about where we would like to see that capital invested. There's a climate investment plan that has everything, including the kitchen sink. It is a well-developed piece of work. It is what causes countries, and we heard this for many years in climate negotiations. Institutions would say to us, well, yes, you all say that you want a reduction in emissions. You all say that you want investment in adaptation. But what does that look like? What do you need? What are the projects? Where are the bankable projects? And they said it in quite a supercilious way, I do have to say sometimes, because they were telling us frontline countries on the front line of the climate crisis, might y'all just ask you for things, but y'all don't really know what you want. And we told them, we showed them that we know what we want. We developed, the Member for Christchurch East Central and others working together, developed the instruments to give to the global community. We said, no, we ain't begging for things, here you go. We have shown you how to do this. There's an energy transition plan separately. And so we've sent signals to the market about the kinds of investment we want to attract. And there is capital out there. So the reindustrialization problem that we have is not a capital problem. It is not one of sufficient incentives. The Member for Christchurch East Central and his team made sure of that in the budget of 2024. I'm not sure where the execution is, but certainly the intent and the framework itself is there. So those are not the issues. We do, though, have a technology transfer problem in this country. And while the bill speaks to employment, and while the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central rightly emphasized the fact that we want this employment to be higher responsibility, high wage posts or roles in the businesses, we have a technology transfer problem. And what do I mean by that? We keep talking about innovation, but we are still working to have to set up the means by which a young person who studies science and technology at the University of the West Indies comes up with a product, or somewhere else, or at SJPI, or anywhere else, comes up with a product that is worthy of entering the market. The pathway for that to happen is a mystery. And so we in Barbados are actually having to solve the problem that many emerging economies have, which is how do we set up the wherewithal to be able to make sure that these ideas, by investing in intellectual property development and so on, how do these ideas hit the pipeline to be able to get into the market? Bringing companies here that work in science, pharmaceutical production, technology, and so on, could be a first step in that direction. But I certainly don't see a clear pathway for those companies to partner with existing institutions to be able to have that technology transfer happen in a sustainable way. Sir, I think that sometimes we pay a little bit of lip service to this idea of innovation, and we think that it is simply a question of having an idea. I was pleased to see some months ago the Honourable Member for St. James North make reference to a focus on how we teach math and science, and a clear investment in changing that. Because I have seen scenarios, countries, where there is a technology park, where there is a technology industry of companies that come in, and in a parallel way, there is an under-adaptation of science and technology by the indigenous population. I have seen it in several jurisdictions. And so then what you have is a thriving, innovative sector fueled by external companies, a wall, and then a country that continues to struggle with its own technology transfer and innovation. And so, I would imagine that the same ease with which decisions are made under this fund, which is ease, it seems like it would be quite simple to be able to access the fund, although which triggers we are not sure. But I would imagine that we intend that with the same ease with which companies can access this fund, that we intend to improve the ease with which our young people or others who are working to have their ideas brought to market as young innovators also access support. Sir, as I close, I want to put my remarks in context. I have been very, and proud is a word I don't like to use. I've been very pleased to have been a part of a Barbados economic team that has shown the world what it means to be small but significant. I would not for the world. Remember for Christchurch East Central, and I used to joke a bit about how all of the economic action happens in other kinds of jurisdictions except for those like ours. I mean, when the IMF changed, brought a new, I forget the designation, team leader, or I believe he was from Argentina. I'm not sure if he's still there. Yes, the mission chief from Argentina. And the evening that we met, learning that he was from Argentina, we were a bit jealous. Because we were saying, there's so much action. Argentina's economy has gone through so many things. And being an economist in that environment, oh, the things you must learn. Sir, before I was drawn into political service, along with member of Christchurch East Central some years ago, I was about to leave to go to do a PhD in economics on the continent of Africa. And people ask me, but why would you want to work in economics in Africa? And I said, because there's so much action. There's so much action. As an economist, you want to be where you have big, difficult problems to solve for large populations. That's a fact. But sir, the continent doesn't have anything on Barbados the last 7.5 years that we've been through. Argentina doesn't have anything on Barbados. The difference is we have had very clear, generally, solid economic governance. And so we haven't had the peaks and troughs, but what we've had is a team that since 2018 put all of our best brain cells forward with our external partners and came up with some truly innovative things. And, you know, that experience I would not trade for anything. The member for Christchurch East Central and those of us who worked on these instruments can go anywhere in any crisis and say, I can help you. I guarantee it. And so my questions on this legislation are simply to ensure that we continue on that trajectory, that we keep intact, that we protect that record, and that we are able to structure this very important fund with the same rigor and attention to detail that we have the others. And with those words, sir, I'm obliged.
Honourable Member for Christchurch West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let me first start in a similar vein that the member for St. Michael South Central started, in support of this matter. And I want to fully lend my support to this bill that is before the House today. I think it is an innovative piece of legislation to give opportunities to other companies other than ones here in this country. And let me first start by saying that the Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central went through a series of funds that mainly relate to local companies, predominantly for local companies. This legislation gives an opportunity also for foreign companies rather than just local companies. And I think it's important to understand that companies, even although they may be successful, can still benefit from another or increased injection of capital. This is why development banks and merchant banks exist, to be able to give additional capital to sometimes very often successful companies. You know, Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member asked the question why it's important for a company who already has capital to want more. But it made me reflect on something that the now president of Barbados, once told me. And he looked at me and he said, you know, and he said this as he took off his glasses. He said, you know, I can see without wearing glasses. I can see without wearing glasses. But when I wear glasses, I see even better. And I'm not going to tell you what he was referring to with respect to wearing glasses and not wearing glasses. But it gives the point that sometimes a company, an individual, a country has to take certain measures to improve on what was otherwise a successful venture. And this is partly what this is about. Now, I agree with the Honourable Member on one topic in particular, and it comes to technology transfer. Technology transfer is a big problem. It's a big problem because people see it as proprietary information, that they have proprietary information on their particular technique, and because of that, there's a cost of whether they should transfer that technology. But I think that as a corollary to this legislation, it should be a requirement that any new technologies, any new research and development that is coming, that we're assisting as a country to bring, should have an element of technology transfer. And I accept that for sure. You know, Mr. Speaker, when I listened to the Honourable Member, well, I would call him the Leader of the Opposition, and he referred and spoke about the travel of the Honourable Prime Minister. I remember clearly, Mr. Speaker, in this honourable chamber, the Honourable Prime Minister brought how much her travel had costed and how much value she had brought by virtue of that travel, times and times and times over the travel. And for him to come and suggest that there's been no value, the amount of grant money that the Water Authority alone has benefited, the amount of investment that the Prime Minister has been able to garnish to come to Barbados, the amount of conferences bringing 800, 900, 1,000 people who want to come to the country that is led by a global leader in the climate crisis is immeasurable. And I found it highly, I would call it unprofessional. There could be much worse things that I could say. But let me keep it parliamentary and say unprofessional for the member, the Leader of the Opposition, to go down a road when he knew full well that there's been significant benefit brought to this country by the Prime Minister looking outside. You know, Mr. Speaker, we are a country of 166 square miles with, I don't know, a couple hundred, few thousand companies, a few hundred, maybe 40, 50 in manufacturing. We, as a people, are risk averse. Whether we like it or not, we are risk averse. People in our part of the region, we do the tried and tested all the time. Nobody is prepared to step outside the box and try something new. And if you're going to try something new, you do it small. You're taking a little chance. You're trying a thing. But as a people, as a whole, research and development, very little. Opportunities and experiments to find new ways and new things and new procedures, very, very minimal. So what we have to do in order to enhance and develop our country is to bring expertise from outside. And this gives an opportunity to attract new investment. This gives an opportunity to attract new people. This gives an opportunity for people outside of Barbados to say, hey, this is an opportunity for me to come and do research here. And you know, Mr. Speaker, just a few days ago, I met with a company who's prepared to come to Barbados to not only do research and development, but to bring their company here that, you know what, makes intravenous bag fluids. That's right. Millions and millions of intravenous bag fluids for export. To export intravenous fluids to the rest of the region. These are opportunities that we must hold on to. You know, Mr. Speaker, when I heard the Honourable Member, the Leader of the Opposition, speak about growth and how growth isn't trickling down and so on, but you know, at least we had growth. The Democratic Labour Party cannot school the Barbados Labour Party on growth ever, ever, ever. In their lost decade, they never even went past 1%, and they had inflation to help them. That's right. They had inflation to help them. So if you took out inflation, they had decline, not growth. This Barbados Labour Party, on the other hand, we have recorded 17 quarters of growth, and we will continue to record growth across this region. Because you know what? We go to work, and we work every day to bring growth to this country. You know, in the same way that last 10 years was the lost decade, I would suggest that we are in 7.5 years of this decade of restoration. This is the decade of restoration. This is the decade to restore confidence in Barbados and in Barbadians. This is the decade to restore growth to this country. This is the decade to restore upgrade after upgrade after upgrade. This is a decade of restoration. This is the decade to restore, rebuild, and regenerate an economy that is perking, an economy that is abuzz, and we will continue to take this country forward because the Barbados Labour Party is working and working well. And let me say, Mr. Speaker, when Labour seeds, Bajans succeed. And we are seeing the success time after time after time. Success in tourism, success in construction, success in industry, success in education. You name the sector, agriculture, success. Sports, success. Empowerment of the people, success. Whichever it is, whichever ministry, success after success after success. Because when Labour leads, Bajans succeed. Mr. Speaker, just a few more points. I actually don't think that you have to speak long to make an impactful presentation. Now, I heard the Honourable Member speak about foreign labour coming to this country. And I sat back and aghast. Foreign labour coming to this country being a problem? But how could that be? First thing, Barbados is well known for Guyanese labour coming and working in construction. And if it wasn't for the last administration sending back thousands of them, they would still be here today helping us in construction. That's had a deleterious effect on the small shops, on the landlords, on the bus people, everybody across the country. That's number one problem. Now let's say, okay, he says extra-regional. Mr. Speaker, you could cast your mind back to 2008 when the Democratic Labour Party brought Filipino nurses to work in this country. Would them extra-regional though? And further, they went and changed the law to accommodate the registration of those nurses in 2008. Because at that time, there wasn't a law for registration of nurses that were foreign. And they changed the law. You can look it up on the Parliament website, 2008 registration of nurses, nursing rules. When they changed it, the minister could change to whoever and wherever the institution was that the person was trained, which was different from what it was before the act that it repealed. So the Democratic Party cannot tell us anything about growth. They cannot tell us anything about foreign labor. They cannot tell us anything about how to run a country effectively and efficiently. Because this Barbados Labour Party has shown it, has proven it, has brought the percentage growth of GDP to less than 100% for the first time in a long, long time. This is the decade of restoration, and the Barbados Labour Party is leading from the front. I'm obliged.
Honourable Member Sir Michael South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I really do not intend to be long myself, but I felt it necessary to share a few thoughts, only because as we've endured the contribution from the opposition leader, it is clear to me that the honourable member, insists on taking this country down a very dangerous path. And I say so, Mr. Speaker, not very lightly. There are many who believe that people who speak for very long times and use glorious words, sir, are somehow exercising leadership. The honourable member has a tendency to quote Shakespeare, sir, Cicero, Homer, all kinds of people. Shakespeare reminds us, sir, today he reminded us of Hamlet and something wrong in Denmark, trying to cast aspersions on the government as always. But in that very Hamlet, sir, there was a character called Polonius. And I'm speaking through you, hopefully, to the opposition leader, wherever he is, because he likes to talk Shakespeare, so perhaps he will follow me. There is a character called Polonius, sir, who speaks in very long speeches, full of verbosity. He goes on and he goes on. Mr. Speaker, sir, he has a lot to say, but Shakespeare himself, that the opposition leader loves, warns us against characters like Polonius, Mr. Speaker, sir. In fact, he makes it clear, sir, the irony is that it is Polonius to whom the line, "to thine own self be true," emanates. And that "to thine own self be true" was Shakespeare actually making a mockery of Polonius, because Polonius was far from true to himself. In fact, the line goes on to say that if you're true to yourself, then you cannot be false to any other person. And we know that the opposition leader has been false to the people in Christchurch South. We don't need any more proof than that. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I found it extremely disheartening. I wouldn't even say offensive. That was his words, Mr. Speaker, sir. To sit here and have to endure the attack that was launched on the Honourable Prime Minister. The Honourable Member for Christchurch West just spoke very clearly about the fact that the PM came here, Mr. Speaker, sir, and laid the facts. Laid the facts. Every dollar, every cent, what it cost, what it got Barbados, Mr. Speaker, sir. And we saw when the attack was then turned, because that's all this was, you know. The opposition leader said he's going to maltreat us. Last time he spoke, he ain't friendly for nobody, yeah. Because Parliament now is a place where you come to war. But Mr. Speaker, sir, the Honourable Member for St. Philip South got up and gave facts. Again, try to explain what GDP is and how it works. But the opposition leader is immune to facts and impervious to reason. And there is nothing that is said that can change the opinion that he takes, sir, the Honourable Member, regardless of the facts, Mr. Speaker, sir. But the attack that was launched on the Prime Minister, I found especially repugnant and despicable, Mr. Speaker, sir. And to say that he does not mean to cast aspersions or he's not don't take it personally, don't mean it personally. But you can't say such things and then excuse yourself by saying don't take it personal. You're not meaning a personal offense. No offense was meant, Mr. Speaker, sir. The leader of the opposition said that the PM at the government purse goes on personal business, Mr. Speaker, sir. And that in itself is so offensive and salacious, Mr. Speaker, sir. And only said because I believe that the leader of the opposition believes that we are now in a political season. And what we have passing off as policy is politics, Mr. Speaker, sir. And that, as the Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central said, perhaps it is because he thinks he has occasion to hold us hostage to the things that he espouses in here, even though they have no relationship whatsoever to fact, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have traveled with the Prime Minister. I traveled with the Prime Minister, sir, in, I think it was February, Mr. Speaker, sir, at a time, and these things need to be said, at a time when this country, sir, was not of reputation that it is now. When we came to office, Mr. Speaker, sir, people were not taking Barbadian dollars. They were joking in the market that even in Guyana, at the time when Guyana wasn't as wealthy as it is now, even Guyana was refusing Barbadian dollars, Mr. Speaker, sir. But I traveled with the Prime Minister, sir. It was freezing. And we walked, sir. We were in Canada, Mr. Speaker, sir, going from bank to bank. I would never forget it, Mr. Speaker, sir. It is shameful behavior to have to endure it from the opposition leader, sir, because he knows it is untrue. We went from bank to bank, Mr. Speaker, sir. The Prime Minister then could hardly get an audience with senior members in the bank. I want you, the country, to understand how people treated Barbados when we came into office because of the abuse of the Democratic Labour Party, sir. We could not get an audience with senior members of banks, far less heads of states, Mr. Speaker, sir. And to say that the Prime Minister is on a frolic, which was his word, is on a frolic because of her own personal interests, sir, is as despicable as it could be, sir. We were walking through the cold, bank to bank, PM making the case. Every place we go, they're sending down middle managers, sir. This was probably 2019. Nobody of a senior level in the banks who wanted to meet with us, Mr. Speaker. And I watched right next door, sitting next to the PM, as she fought and she fought. And if you travel with the Prime Minister, sir, any person, public servant or otherwise, sir, who travel with the Prime Minister would tell you there are no breaks. You hardly stop even to eat. Just working, Mr. Speaker, sir. I was there. And I like to think, Mr. Speaker, sir, that I am hardworking, especially back in 2019. I thought that I had this idea that I work hard. I realized what working hard was. Never once pausing for this country, Mr. Speaker, sir. I know that the Honourable Prime Minister loved this country with all of her heart. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition went further. He even went on to say that it is now a dereliction of duty. Her travels are a dereliction of duty to the country, Mr. Speaker, sir. I didn't get up and interrupt him because I know he likes to post the Honourable Member likes to post his 30-second clips of him attacking the government. Yeah, have your 30 seconds of fame. But at the end of the day, sir, it is all untrue. That somehow, no, this is a dereliction of duty. Furthermore, and here's the irony, that somehow she's no longer running the ministries. Now, the same Prime Minister that they accuse of being a dictator for running the ministries is now to be accused of not running the ministry because it's convenient for the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Speaker, sir. No matter what position the Prime Minister takes, sir, we have to understand that this is the position that the Leader of the Opposition takes, and we've seen it before. That somehow you can attack the Leader of the country over and over and over again. We saw it, sir, in 2008, 2007. They did it with the former Prime Minister, sir, the Right Excellent, Owen Arthur. I remember a picture of Owen Arthur in the newspaper enclosed like he was some dictator, sir, as a tactic of the Democratic Labour Party. And we hear it all the time. And they feel that if they can attack the Prime Minister, they can somehow bring down an entire government, sir. But I am telling you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and I don't feel the PM needs any defense. But I have lived and worked with the hardest working person I have ever lived and worked with in my life, sir, in the form of the Honourable Prime Minister, sir. I am happy to be associated with her and happy to be associated with the works that she has done, sir, and the leadership that she has brought to this country. Leadership is not words, Mr. Speaker. Leadership is not words, and words are not wisdom. Works are wisdom. And for all of the speeches that we have been subjected to in this place, from the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Speaker, sir, I have never once heard a solution to anything, not even to the many made-up problems that he has created for himself. I have never heard a solution to anything, Mr. Speaker. All we do time after time is to come here and be subjected to these conversations, sir, that are made up, sir, accusing the PM of not being a good leader, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I will give you 2 examples, and then I want to speak about some other things. But I am so disheartened, not upset or offended, disheartened by the contribution of the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Speaker, sir, because that is theater, and that is for posting, and that is for people to come and comment and say, oh, look how he's taking the government to task. Mr. Speaker, when I was first elected as a minister, chosen as a minister, sir, we started this debt for nation swap conversation. The definition swap, sir, and I'll be very brief on this, sir, the idea was that a country is in such a bad state that people will buy it, it will sell its debt for cheap. We had in opposition, sir, and the leader of the opposition was there, he signed the book. When we were in opposition, Mr. Speaker, sir, we all got together, sir, and we discussed the debt swap. It's in our manifesto. It's not new. We discussed it, sir. We agreed that given the state of the country, it probably would be a good thing to try to free up some local currency to invest into the environment, sir, through a debt swap. What we did not know, by the time we started the conversation for the debt swap, sir, that the economy under the leadership of the Prime Minister had performed so well, that the precepts, that the ideas around the insolvency almost of the country had been shattered. Our debt at the time was trading at par. Countries that were in that state, sir, were trading at 40 cents below the dollar, 35 cents. We were trading at par. And there were days, look it up, there were days when people were so confident in our leadership, Mr. Speaker, sir, the leadership of the Prime Minister, because this is what this is about. This whole thing, Mr. Speaker, sir, is a try to destroy the Prime Minister. Try to destroy the reputation, try to destroy her efforts, Mr. Speaker, sir. I know that this country is proud of the leader that we have. But there were days when our debt was trading above par. This is unheard of, Mr. Speaker, sir. Within a year of us coming to, so that the definition swap that we had originally imagined, we couldn't do. Because the country was performing so well, sir. I was there in COVID. And I saw some brave, bold decisions being made, sir, that even myself, I started questioning these decisions. But it turned out to be the right thing. The Prime Minister often says that morals and values and principles only mean something when it becomes difficult to stand by them. And during COVID, sir, it was very difficult to stand by them, sir, but I watched what leadership is, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I would be hard-pressed to sit here and to allow the leader of the opposition to taint the reputation of the leadership of this country, sir, for short-term progress. Because when you do that, sir, you expose a whole country for a lot longer than you imagine. For self-preservation, the leader of the opposition. For self-interest, the leader of the opposition, sir. I am disheartened by the comments, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I believe, sir, that the leader of the opposition, well, I hope that the leader of the opposition can do better. We explained through the form of the Honourable Member for St. Philip South how GDP works. And every time we got to explain it for every single produce. And so this is what it is, it's theater. Tell me how it is on watermelons. Will you just understand how it works? Tell me how it is on this. Tell me. Sir, for those who are listening, that is performance. It is not progress. It is just performance. It is theater, it's cheap tricks. Mr. Speaker, sir, and I am grateful that the Honourable Member for St. Philip South was able to respond to him in the way that he did. And you know, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would want to believe that it was ignorance in the true meaning of the word. That perhaps in the true dictionary sense of ignorance, that the leader of the opposition did not know any better. I would want to believe, sir, that even though the facts have been made clear that perhaps when the lights are off and the camera is no longer on him, that he would reflect, the Honourable Member, sir, would reflect on the wisdom that was shared in this place. I would want to believe that. But I have to believe, Mr. Speaker, sir, I have to believe that the word malicious, in the true sense of the word, sir, when these kind of aspersions are cast, sir, well, perhaps I should say I wouldn't want to believe so that you don't have to caution me. I would not want to believe that it is malicious, Mr. Speaker, sir. Because we know, Mr. Speaker, sir, I watched every member in here as they spoke, sir, get up and explain the reality of what is going on, sir, and it makes absolutely no difference, just criticism without solutions. And in a sense, what did we have here? An opposition leader who had determined that for political expediency, he would turn on the business community, turn on the very farmers, turn on the entrepreneurs, turn on the workers, Mr. Speaker, sir. That's what it is. If it is that this country is performing so terribly, all of the various sectors that make it up, sir, are being turned on by the opposition leader. We came into office, sir, and we determined we were going to build a country through partnership. Partnership, working with other people. That is why most of the hard decisions that were taken in this country were not taken in the cabinet room. Those decisions that were taken at the social partnership, where business sits and where labor sits. And now where the members of the NGO community from time to time sit, Mr. Speaker. So that's where the difficult decisions are taken, Mr. Speaker, because we determined that we want to build this country out through partnership. And that all that we have done to build the country, sir, would be lost in a few years, few months, few weeks under the leadership, if you can call it that, sir, of the honourable member who represents, or should represent, Christchurch South. Mr. Speaker, sir. And this is all that we are having, a range of politics, Mr. Speaker, sir. We cannot grow this economy by attacking people. We cannot grow this economy by attacking people, sir. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, sir, they said it wasn't going to be long. I mean, I have a lot to say, I won't say it today. But Mr. Speaker, sir, in relation to growth, when I was first campaigning, I used to say in GDP, the only P that matters to me is people. Don't tell me about GDP, I want to hear about people, Mr. Speaker, sir, but I live in the real world. And we know that countries have to be able to grow. We know that you have to be able to commit yourself, Mr. Speaker, sir, to having inclusive growth. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is a very dangerous commentary to say that there's been nothing done in this country and that all we are is committed to growth, Mr. Speaker, sir. I suspect that within the next few weeks, the facts will prove the opposition leader wrong in a way, sir, that he cannot dispute, although we have seen that facts mean nothing to influencing his opinion. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, was it not this country, sir, that put in place the $600 for people when we went through COVID? That was supposed to be for a few months, sir, that is still going on today? Was it not this Barbados Labour Party, sir, under the leadership of the same Prime Minister that the honourable member for Christchurch South has said, sir, is not a good leader? Was it not under this leadership, sir, that we created a resilience unit that finds housing in circumstances where people can't find housing? Was it not this Labour Party, sir, that raised welfare by 40%, Mr. Speaker, sir? Was it not this Labour Party that before we went on to the IMF program, the Prime Minister said before he carried people on a long march, I must give them breakfast, sir, and gave people pay raises, Mr. Speaker, sir? The evidence is clear. Legislation for the elderly, for the disabled, for the poorest of the poor among us, to protect the children, Mr. Speaker, sir. What is that? When I look at what is happening, sir, in training, the honourable member for St. James South every single week, bringing another training program, keeping me too busy, really. Another training program, more and more training for the vulnerable. Is that not leadership, Mr. Speaker, sir? Is that not the basis of inclusive growth? And I ask the honourable member through you, sir, if these things do not prove that we are balancing growth, sir, while maintaining our basis, sir, because we have been a genuine Labour Party. Mr. Speaker, sir, I just came, as I stepped out and I came back, sir, and somebody stopped me. And they were arguing, why is this government continuing to raise minimum wage, sir? Why do y'all keep raising minimum wage? What gonna happen to the businesses was the question that was asked of me. And my response, sir, is what will happen to the people if we do not look out for the poorest of the poor, Mr. Speaker, sir? That is who we've been. So it is disingenuous, Mr. Speaker, sir, bordering. It is disingenuous, Mr. Speaker, sir, for the opposition leader to come to this place, Mr. Speaker, sir, and to say those kinds of reckless statements, Mr. Speaker, sir, for political mileage. And that while he sat on this side, Mr. Speaker, sir, silence. Total and absolute silence. I would advise Barbados, if they want to see what the honourable leader is made of, to go and watch the election speeches from 2018. When this Labour Party was the best thing, and the Democrat Labour Party was the worst thing. And the only thing that has changed is that he is cross-sized, Mr. Speaker, sir. And nothing else has changed, Mr. Speaker, sir. This is about self-interest and self-pursuit at the expense of a country that we love, Mr. Speaker, sir. And you hear it time after time, no matter what we bring to this house. The honourable member for Christchurch East Central, sir, praised for working extremely hard, the hardest working minister, but at the same time, trying to lure his constituents against him, Mr. Speaker, sir, because that is the nature of the politics being practiced, sir. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to end by just asking this country to understand what performance is. And if there is to be a judgment, if the Honourable Leader of the Opposition feels that he wants to weigh himself and his leadership approach, if I can call it that, sir, I am a student of leadership, Mr. Speaker, sir. I have studied it at the highest level, so I am challenged to accept what I see here as leadership. But if he chooses to call it leadership, Mr. Speaker, sir, and he would want to compare his leadership style to that of the Prime Minister, sir, put it to the people, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I am telling you, sir, he will be found wanting when he weighs himself in the balance, Mr. Speaker, sir. I had no intention of intervening in this debate, Mr. Speaker, sir, but to watch what I know is a trick by the DLP, sir, a one-trick kind of pony. Let us knock down the Prime Minister, say whatever we can say against the Prime Minister, and you hope that it gives us some political value, because if we can knock down the leader, we don't going to knock down the rest of them. And so go after the Prime Minister time and time again, say the worst things against a person, sir, who has brought nothing but honor to this country. And all of us who sit here, all of us who travel know it, nothing but honor to this country, Mr. Speaker, sir. The members of the disabled community have asked me more than one occasion to thank her. Elderly people have asked me more than one occasion to thank her. The poor and the disenfranchised, the marginalized have asked me on more than one occasion to thank her. I thank her on behalf of the people of this country who are happy to have the kind of leadership that the Prime Minister has shown, Mr. Speaker, sir. I thank the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central for the work that he is doing, sir, to be able to bring growth and to recognize, sir, that we are using that growth to advance the interests of the common man in this country, because that is who we are. With those few words, sir, I am thankful.
Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I do appreciate the support of honourable members, because I too, sir, was quite alarmed at what I was hearing. And I know that earlier today we spoke, well, not we, but the honourable member for St. Michael South had raised the spectre of Don Quixote. And I think what we witnessed this afternoon, sir, was the full expression of a person, sir, who is living in a completely different reality and wants the rest of us to participate in that reality, sir. And I thank the honourable member for St. Philip South for bringing absolute clarity, sir, to the nasty charge that somehow the other, the central bank and the statistical service was somehow cooking the numbers to inflate agriculture production in this country. And when you attempt, sir, to bring into disrepute credible institutions, sir, that are working on behalf of this country, I think there's a shame. I can't use the right word to describe it, but it's a shame, sir, and a blot on this Parliament. Yep. Now, let me remind the Honourable Leader of the Opposition that not under this government, no central bank governor didn't go out there making up his own survey because he didn't like the numbers, as was the case under the previous administration. That is not what we do, sir. We revisit our methodologies. We make sure that we capture more and more people each time we go and do the surveys, or more businesses, to ensure that we know more about what is happening in the sector. So as the Honourable Member of St. Philip South, sir, through a couple of things. We had the feed program, sir, which the Honourable Member knows full well when we came into office to get more people involved in agriculture, a lot more young people involved in agriculture, sir. We introduced the feed program. And that feed program has been working, and therefore, if you did not add, sir, the output from the feed program to what was being produced with the traditional agriculture before, then that would not make sense, sir. You had to include that. But as I said on Tuesday, sir, we are now seeing more and more agricultural lands being brought back into production because of us being able to resolve the plantations that the Democratic Labour Party, sir, pledged to back the OECS liabilities under the CLECO failure. As a result of the Ministry of Agriculture now bringing those lands back into production, then naturally, sir, agricultural production will increase. So for the 10 years, for the most part, that the Democratic Labour Party was in office, sir, those plantations were out of production. Bear Cowich, sir, confusing the neighborhoods in this country, and he can come in here to question the fact that we have been able to bring these lands back into production. No, sir, I know that the public it's Christmas. People out, I just stepped outside and then people out there getting on with the business, sir, of growing the economy. People out there in Marhill Street, sir, Palmetto Street, walking through town, sir, with the bags, sir. I know meet a few old ladies around the corner there, sir. Bags full, trolleys full, sir. So when he wants to know where the growth is, let him go into town now, sir, and he will see the growth in this Barbados economy, sir. And we don't say that lightly. So when people start questioning minimum wage and what's happening to businesses, sir, if people have a little more money to spend, what do you think they're going to do with it, sir? They're going to spend it at any business who does not understand that you have to be able to put a little trala, sir, in people's pockets, especially when you've had a decade, sir, and I make this point again. I recall, sir, 2 weeks ago, I reminded the leader of the opposition that the first minimum wage order was delivered in December of 2004, sir, and it only changed, sir, in 2021. So under the Democratic Labour Party, all of those people were on $6.25, sir, when every year they were coming to this place, increasing taxes, consolidated fund, all of these, not the consolidated, but the social responsibility levy, and all of them, all of those things are pounding on people, increasing the VAT, everything on people, sir. And yet still, they're going to tell us, sir, that we don't look out for people. We, sir, have been able to deliver more wages for people, and yes, we would love it to be more, sir, but the international environment is such that prices, not because of anything the government has done, sir, but costs globally have gone up. But we have been able to respond as best we can in much the same way, sir, as we've been able to do with other issues. And the reality is, sir, that I am absolutely confident that, yes, the people will like a few more dollars in the pocket. Yes, they would. And therefore, I see and witness that as I went out there just now to conduct some business, sir. And we will continue to make sure, sir, that we have more inclusion by being able to bring additional business. And with additional businesses in the ecosystem, existing businesses will benefit from that additional activity, sir. And therefore, it is important that we understand the genesis of this. I will just correct one thing. Just a main one thing that the Honourable Member for St. Michael South just said. And that was related to the fact that 7.5 years ago, if you listen to the speeches of the Barbados Labour Party versus that of the Democratic Labour Party, two things have changed. Okay. Two things, not one, two. What you said, yes, he crossed the floor. But this Barbados Labour Party, we have delivered, sir, on those speeches that we gave to the people of this country. Such note that our record, it wasn't just speeches, it is records. So when the Honourable Member speaks of performance, we have delivered what we said that we will deliver. In spite of the challenges that we have faced, we have got on with the business of delivering for our people. And therefore, this bill is another tool which I believe, sir, we will be able to add alongside the other work that we are doing across the rest of the economy, so that Barbados' economy becomes much more resilient, much more inclusive. And therefore, sir, there's nothing that we have done in this Parliament in 7 years. Well, I've been in this job, sir, 7 years, 6 months, and 15 days. 15 days, sir, I've been in this job. And we have come to this place, sir, not willy-nilly, because we ain't got nothing to do on a Tuesday or Thursday, sir, but because everything that we have done here, sir, has had a significant impact to improve the lives of every single Bajan, sir, and we will continue to do that, whether it is this bill or any of the other pieces of legislation, sir, that we bring to this place, because the truth is, sir, there is no difference between what people might try to create this myth that there's a difference between the society and the economy, sir. Everything is linked. Social empowerment, social investment equates, sir, on the other side, with respect to economic enfranchisement, and us being able to ensure that families can generate wealth and pass that wealth from one generation, sir, to another. And so that is our philosophy as the Barbados Labour Party, sir, to focus on removing the things that humbugging people, sir. And that takes sometimes some very tricky things to do, because when you start to unravel things that culturally, sir, people have gotten accustomed to, they may not fully appreciate that the cost of continuing to do those things are the not just cost from a monetary perspective, but time and these things that people have gotten accustomed to, sir, that in making the transition, that requires not just consultation, but ensuring that people don't make decisions because somebody says that there's some fear which is grossly unfounded. And therefore, we have taken the time deliberately, so, sir, to make sure we have as broad as possible stakeholder consultations. But at the end of all the discussions, sir, you know what we gotta do? We gotta get on with the business of governing and delivering for people. And that is what this Barbados Labour Party, sir, is committed certainly to doing. In relation to the questions raised by the Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central, sir, we have been monitoring our performance as it relates to revenue from the reforms we've undertaken, sir, with respect to the global minimum tax, the GLOBE rules. Consistent with what we've been doing under the BERT program up until now, we will continue, sir, focusing on, yes, apportioning some of any, let me say, sir, let me say extra, any resources that we have that allows us to cover our current expenditure, anything that is over and above, current and capital that is, over and above that, with respect to our current obligations, we want to make sure that, one, we continue to pay down debt in advance, which is why, sir, when I told you on Tuesday that we borrowed 7.3 but paid back 9.3, it is because we have been systematically paying down extra debt to give us space in the oncoming years to be able to ensure that we are creative with respect to the fiscal space. But there's that, sir, the government's capital works program with respect to ensuring that we can advance money certainly to state-owned enterprises to get on with the business of putting in water mains in the case of the Barbados Water Authority, investment in respect to infrastructure at SSA and other transport board with respect to buses and these types of things to ensure that the things that people expect that they can deliver by way of services, sir, we have been doing that to ensure that people can get to and from work and have their basic sanitation needs and those types of things improved, unlike what was the case in the previous 10 years, sir, before we came to office. And so those two things have been the priorities, but now we are saying, whilst we have a window of opportunity, sir, that we want to add this third plank with respect to ensuring then that we are setting up, sir, the economy to be as robust moving forward. I made a very clear point that as we transition to the point where we start to taper off in 5 to 7 years with respect to the public sector investment program, that it is important that we have something to be able to replace the space that might be created with respect to that. Now, yes, companies will have capital, and companies do have capital, but the reality is that we want them here, and we need them here to develop what they're doing in time to make sure that we can effect that transition. And therefore, we believe that, notwithstanding the other funds that are in place, the significant increase in foreign exchange, which, as I mentioned, sir, the amendments as outlined will address, will help us to be able to shape that environment. The reality is that in different size companies will have a different threshold with respect to their capacity and earning of foreign exchange, and therefore we want to be very deliberate, very strategic, very precise with respect to what we are doing sector by sector, and therefore the ability to be able to monitor that and to be flexible. To be flexible is going to be critically important within the context of a diversified space. And therefore, that is part of the reason why we will be delivering it by order, to make sure that we have the flexibility to be able to say for this sector and for these size companies doing very specific things, sir, especially on the export side, especially on the employment with respect to Barbadians, that we're able to have the flexibility to monitor and implement, whilst at the same time being able to ensure then that we meet the thresholds with respect to the diversification. And so, sir, I am not going to detain the House much longer, and I want to give this honourable chamber the assurance that, as with every other intervention that we have done here, we have been open, transparent with respect to these matters. And therefore, it is not a departure from any of the norms with respect to Parliament. And at the end of all of this, I know that once the people of Barbados, in seeing and appreciating not just the work that we've done, but we continue to do, but I know that within the same way that 7.5 years ago, sir, there was great doubt about the government's ability. And I said, not we as the government, I'm talking about the country. 7.5 years ago, sir, there was great doubt as to whether or not we could pull ourselves back from where we were. That is not the case today. And I say to Barbadians that we are, in a sense, sir, making fresh guard, taking fresh guard in respect of what we want in the next 7 years to look like. And therefore, the confidence that you placed in us 7.5 years ago, when we came to you, we made a very credible case, sir, with respect to what we can deliver. We have delivered that. And I'm saying to Barbadians tonight, sir, that on this and the other work that we are continuing, you can rest assured that we will continue to deliver. I agree 100% with the Honourable Member for St. Michael South. I say categorically, sir, the Prime Minister, sir, has traveled the world. She has opened many doors that were not open or accessible, sir, to Barbados under the Democratic Labour Party administration, sir. People from outside of Barbados, sir, have given us, as members of Parliament, our officials, sir, the benefit of the doubt. Because the Honourable Member for St. Michael Northeast was confident enough, in spite of the bad shape that this Barbadian economy was in 7.5 years ago, sir, in spite of that bad shape, to go and say to people in every room, every capital that she has visited, to say, not just give Barbados a chance, but we are going to demonstrate, sir, that we can be true to our word, such that now, 7.5 years later, things are much, and I don't like the word easier, because as the Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central says, sir, when things are happening, people might get the impression that it is easy. But sir, it means you got to get up and do some work. The Prime Minister has been traveling, but not traveling on vacation, sir. And I wish, sir, I wish that the Prime Minister would do a live stream of her visits abroad, because when I go to Washington with her, sir, it'd be like, my travel on my own, sir, it'd be hectic. Traveling with the Prime Minister, sir, it'd be doubly hectic. She has her schedule, I just have my schedule. I just got to interact and leave her from time to time to go and handle other business. But sir, I wish the Prime Minister would live stream so that Barbadians would understand that she's not out there, so living a life of luxury, living in a hotel, relaxing, sir. The Prime Minister right now is in Abu Dhabi, working on behalf, sir, of the people of Barbados. And she has done so because we have, you see, unlike the previous administration, sir, probably more inward looking, we have from the very beginning said, in order for us to recover, sir, we need to build new partnerships. We opened an embassy in Panama, we opened an embassy in Ghana, we opened an embassy in Kenya, we opened an embassy in Abu Dhabi, sir, and we're supposed to have opened an embassy in India this year, but this fiscal year, that is in train, sir. And the reason for that, sir, as we are saying, 7.5 years ago, it was patently obvious. It should be clear even today why that strategy, sir, is important. And therefore, you don't just, and vice versa, I should say, and vice versa, countries have chosen to open embassies in Barbados again, sir, because the Prime Minister has been able to demonstrate to the world that, yes, Barbados may be small, but when Kofi Annan said that we punch above our weight, sir, people now are recognizing that Barbados is back. Now, that is nothing, sir, to be boastful about, because we had to work hard to make sure that Barbados' good name was repaired. But in repairing the good name, sir, in repairing the good name of Barbados, it is now time, sir, to make sure that we step on the gas and accelerate, because we cannot take anything for granted, sir. We simply cannot. And in our efforts to diversify the economy, we have to be able to be creative in order to be able to help deliver better for the people of Barbados. And I know, sir, that once the foreign exchange is being earned, the jobs being created, the tax revenues coming in, sir, people can be quarreling about something else. And by that time, I know that the Leader of the Opposition, as he confessed today, sir, that he is on his way out, you would, because confession is really good for the soul. He tried to deflect on the Honourable Member for St. Thomas, but what he was really telegraphing, sir, was his own departure from this place. But in all seriousness, sir, our commitment is absolute with respect to the interests, the public interests of the people of Barbados, sir. And this bill before this chamber, what we did earlier today, what we did on Tuesday, sir, what we will do next week, sir, and every time we come here, sir, in this place to do the people's business, I want Barbadians to appreciate that this work is not easy. The Prime Minister ain't living in a lap of luxury when she leaves Barbados. She's working just as hard outside of Barbados as when she comes back. She will land and she gets moving again, just like as if she never left, sir. And therefore, I hope the people of Barbados appreciate that we have seen a lot happen in a short space of time, but it doesn't happen by magic, sir. As the PM will say, you don't have the, in Bewitched, you will snap your fingers, sir, when you're growing up and think, oh, the nose, twirl your nose, right, and things will happen. It does not work like that. Each of us, as members of Parliament, our staff in our ministry, sir, we certainly have rolled up our sleeves. You might see me with sleeves, sir, but these are really armholes by now. But the reality is, sir, we have all rolled up our sleeves and gotten to work to make sure that we deliver for people. And bit by bit by bit by bit, Barbadians, sir, are seeing the benefits of that. And so, sir, I promise to be brief. That is the extent of my submission to wrap up this debate. I want to thank honourable members for their contribution. And as this will be my last submission with respect to I won't be here on Tuesday, I want to wish members of the House, the staff of Parliament, people of Barbados, sir, warm and very happy and safe holiday season, and all the very best, sir, in the new year. And with those few words, sir, I beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
The question is that this bill be read a second time. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting, the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that you do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself in committee for further consideration of this bill.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself in the committee for further consideration of this bill. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
This Honourable House is now in committee.
Mr. Chairman, in the long title, I wish to insert after the word employment, the words earning of foreign exchange, comma.
The question is that the long title be so amended. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 1.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Clause 1 stand part.
The question is that Clause 1 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chair, I beg to move that Clause 2 stand part.
The question is that Clause 2 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chair, I beg to move that Clause 3 stand part.
The question is that Clause 3 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chair, Clause 4, I propose to delete this clause and substitute the following. Resources of the fund. 4, the resources of the fund shall consist of A, initial capital in the sum of $225 million to be drawn from the consolidated fund over a 3-year period in annual installments of $75 million, semicolon, and B, such other sums as are 1, approved by Parliament by resolution, 2, made available to the fund by way of gift, grant, or otherwise. I beg to move that Clause 4 stand part as amended.
The question is that Clause 4 as amended stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 5.
Chair, I beg to move that Clause 5 stand part.
The question is that Clause 5 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 6.
Chair, Clause 6, in paragraph B, I propose to delete the words "and diversification of business" and substitute the words "or diversification of business" or both. With that, I beg to move that Clause 6 stand part as amended.
The question is that Clause 6 as amended stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 7.
Clause 7, Mr. Chairman, in subsection 1, A, insert after paragraph A the following. B, earns or will earn foreign exchange in an amount that equals or exceeds or will equal or exceed such amount as the minister may prescribe by order, semicolon, and B, renumber the existing paragraphs B and C as paragraphs C and D. Clause 2, in subsection 2, in the last line, insert after the word have, the words or will have. And with that, those amendments, I beg to move that clause 7 stand part as amended.
The question is that clause 7 stand part as amended. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 8.
Clause 8, Mr. Chairman, in subsection 1, insert after the word may, the words after consultation with the Barbados National Growth Council. And with that, I beg to move that clause 8 stand part as amended.
The question is that clause 8 as amended stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clauses 9 through 12.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clauses 9 through 12 stand part.
Second.
The question is that clauses 9 through 12 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Schedule.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do not report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of one. Oh, sorry. My apologies. I beg to move that the schedule be the schedule of the bill.
The question is that the schedule be the schedule to the bill. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do not report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee with amendments.
Second.
The question is that I do not report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee with amendments. All honorable members in favor, please say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
As reported in the passing of one bill in committee with amendments. All member for Christ Church, East Central.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be read a third time.
The question is that this bill be read a third time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methink the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be now passed and cited as the Economic Diversification and Growth Fund Act 2025.
Second.
The question is that this bill be passed and so cited. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methink the ayes have it. This bill is passed and so cited.
To government notices.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to give notice of the Public Service Appointments Bill 2025.
Revert, sir, to first readings of bills.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the first reading of the Public Service Appointments Bill 2025.
The question is that the aforementioned bill be read a first time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. Methink the ayes have it. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, with that, we've come to the end of today's sitting. I therefore beg to move the adjournment of the House until Tuesday, the 16th of December at 10 a.m.
Question is that this chamber be adjourned until Tuesday, the 16th day of December at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methink the ayes have it. This honorable chamber stands adjourned until the 16th day of December 2025 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.